Hello, my happy Crumpin' Wargamers. Today, we are going to learn how to play the WTC, or the World Team Championship style of Warhammer 40,000. There's always a lot of questions about how this is done, and actually, one of my paid members on Coffee actually messaged me, and he said, hey, listen, we're having some problems learning how to understand how to use the WTC format, so would you please answer those? And so, he's a member, and he supports me, so I appreciate that. So here we go. I'm going to make a video as per his request. So there's a lot of benefits for joining up as a member. There's links down below if you want to help support me as I'm bringing this content all for you. Okay, so let's just jump right on into this video. One of the things that we have to learn, what the heck is WTC? Well, that's the World Team Championships. If you saw my overview, which maybe I'll link down below, I talked about how it was probably the best Warhammer experience I've ever had in my life. It is an alternative way of playing Warhammer 40,000. It is practically the same as the normal Warhammer 40k that you all know and love, but there's a few differences that just make the game work a lot better. They have a very elaborate and comprehensive FAQ that just makes the game function better in general. There's a few things in there that I don't necessarily agree with, but overall, I think it is a much better way to play Warhammer, especially with the terrain that they use. And what we will be doing is I'm going to be going through the highlights, the main differences that we see, and I'll be using TTS to kind of guide you guys so you understand how to play this rule set, which is just a little bit different than the standard rule set. And trust me, it is better. So gameplay is a little bit different. What are the main differences between the WTC style of Warhammer 40,000 and normal GW's Warhammer? So here's the big differences. First off, they actually do allow for Overwatch using big guns never tire. So if you remember my previous video when I was talking about mastery of Overwatch, you actually can't use big guns never tire because it's out of phase. It technically only works in the shooting phase, and Overwatch allows you to fire as if it were your shooting phase, but it's not your shooting phase, so you can't use other rules that go along with it. So the WTC actually said, you know what? Your monsters and vehicles, they can still use this rule. They can Overwatch even if they are already engaged. They very specifically say you still can't use any other out-of-phase rules, such as firing deck, pinning bomb bombardment, or cruel amusement. I don't personally agree with this interpretation of the rules, but I do actually think it allows for a balanced and fair game. So I do like it. I think it's totally fine. By the way, they also make sure that they very much so specify that you cannot use your free stratagems that you can use once per phase to use once per turn stratagems once again. So you can never do a double Overwatch in WTC, and I fully support that. So there's a little bit of give and take there. I think this does actually make for a smoother game and a better game. They have another rule which talks about your one-shot weapons. For their rule for one-shot weapons, whenever it's used, and it doesn't matter where it's used or who it's used by. So let's say that you have a unit of acolytes and they're inside a truck, and the truck wants to shoot their demo charges by using its firing deck ability. Or, I'm sorry, with the rock grinder or whatever it is. He wants to shoot by using their firing deck ability. Great. Well, now it is gone. The once per game weapon has been used. You cannot use it again. Once you disembark, the models that did not use their one-shot weapons, they can still throw them, but you don't get it back. So they're also, these once per game weapons also will not come back when your models resurrect. So it's actually a very good little balancing point. So one-shot weapons are actually one-shot weapons in WTC, and I like that a lot. WTC has much better terrain. Way better. As a matter of fact, in very soon, I'm going to be showing you some of the terrain. It is way better. If you've seen a lot of my videos, maybe if you've watched my live streams, which, by the way, we are having a teaching live stream on Friday, once again, for a member of the Discord. It's going to be amazing. So you'll see the style of terrain while we do all our teaching and learning then as well. They actually do it. So they have great terrain. Love it. They aim to discourage uninteractivity. That's probably spelled wrong. And remember, guys, I'm a chiropractor, not a spellopractor, so forgive me there. So basically, in the standard game, you can stand 0.9 inches away from a wall, which makes it impossible for an enemy unit to actually put their base in that slot, so they can't ever technically charge you. So they're going to have to stand outside the wall, which makes them the outside of the 1 inch, and it's impossible for them to fit their base in that space between you and the wall, so that they also can't fit. This can get a little bit confusing. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to switch over to the TTS view, and I'm going to show you what I'm talking about. But essentially what they do is they make it so that you do this and that you have to interact with your enemy, which I super support and approve. All right, so let's check this out. So over here, I've put some custodian guardians down here, and they are hiding in this room because, I don't know, these custodians are being tactical. Custodians aren't cowards, they're just tactical. And what they're doing is they're standing like 0.8 or 1.1 inches away from the wall. So right here, this knob is trying to charge. But if you look, this knob, he was touching the wall, is 1.1 inches away from this custodian guard. And the custodian guards are too close to the wall to allow a knob to actually put their base there, because they would have to stand on top of the base. So it's actually technically an impossible charge. So you can't put a knob there because you'd be on top of the base. And you can't get within engagement range because you're 1.1 inches away by touching the wall on the outside. So this is a very common strategy that is used in Warhammer, and I think it is nonsense. It is a bullshit strategy. It's uninteractive. It doesn't allow your opponent to actually play the game against you, and I think it sucks. So WTC has actually put an FAQ in that allows you, during the charge and pile-in phases, you can actually stand in the middle of a wall. This is an amazing thing, and it forces your opponent to interact with you. It gets rid of a lot of the uninteractivity in the game, and that is always super healthy for the game. It can, however, get very confusing. So, right here, let's say that our knobs wanted to charge, but we're playing normal GW, they can't charge. But since we're playing WTC, they can charge. So one thing that we can do is we can actually stand in the middle of the wall. So I can't stay on the top of my opponent, but now, even though my base is technically slightly through the wall, it's perfectly legal and fine for WTC style of play. So we can actually put our guys down like this. Let's put our war boss down because we know we want the war boss to charge. Okay, so there we go. And then the rest kind of filter in behind. Now this is actually very important. You do not count as being base to base. So this guy over here, he's right here, and let's say we can filter this guy right here, and then this guy's standing right here to keep everything legally within coherency. So these guys do not count as base to base, even though they technically can touch base to base, because this guy's in the middle of the wall. So you can't stand in the middle of the wall and then still also get 2 ranks. That's fine. And what this does, though, is it allows my orcs to still charge the custodians, even though the custodians were trying to do nonsense, movement, gamey mechanics. So my war boss here is going to attack, and all these guys are going to attack. Now, the problem happens is, what happens after you attack? Where do your models go? Because you can't remain standing in the wall. You have to come out of the wall. Well, this is how you do it. So let's say all the orcs fight, and they kill 1, 2, and 3 custodian guards. All right, so 3 custodian guards died to all the orcs. Now, on the consolidation, you're going to have to come in like this. So let's just make sure that we have these guys movement measured so that we can measure all this thing correctly. So you do your 3-inch pile-in. You end up closer to the closest enemy model, boop, in base-to-base contact. This guy's going to go closer to closest enemy model. He couldn't quite make base-to-base, so he's going to go right here. These guys come right here, boo-boo-boo, boo-boo-boo. And he will not be able to make it in. What about these guys? Well, now at this point in time, they cannot remain inside the wall because you can't stand in the wall outside of the pile-in and charge phases, or after the fight phase, you have to get out of the wall. So these guys will actually be able to pile in around here. Then you would just move this guy to the closest point that would not have him in the middle of a wall. So this guy would come right here, and then this guy would have to probably come about right here. And then you're going to have to put this guy right around here. Still 3 inches, still perfectly legal movement. You're just going to have to move your guys so they're no longer inside the wall. And in coherency. So that's how you do it. It's really that simple. Sometimes it can get a little bit complicated. So you and your opponent just have to agree what is the closest position. Sometimes you actually end up getting screwed. Let's say we're standing right here, and the closest legal position would be for them to have to move backwards. Well, that might be what you have to do then, okay? So sometimes you can get a little bit screwed by it. You just have to move them to the closest legal position after you're done with fighting. So that should actually help you guys a bunch as you're playing your WTC style rules. Let's go back to the PowerPoint. And internet magic, cool. So they're discouraging the uninteractivity. Another really cool thing of uninteractivity that they're blocking is that you cannot say put your one character in between like 3 vehicles to make your character unchargeable. It's nonsense. They slap you for doing it. And I absolutely love it. So they also have tons of rule clarifications in their FAQ document, and I'm going to link their FAQ document for you to go through. So there's a lot of things that can be very unclear that weren't really addressed in the rules commentary. So the FAQ has very elaborate rules clarifications. Let's talk about a few more of these differences. So they explicitly allow you to disembark when coming in from reserves. So you can technically have a 6-inch deep strike charge or strat reserves charges. It's completely legal. I think this is nonsense. I hate this ruling. I think it's a bad one. But this is one of the ones that I disagree with the WTC on. But it's what they allow, so we're going to use it. So what I'm going to do right now is I'm just going to go back to the TTS for a moment. I'm going to show you what I mean because this can be a little bit confusing, and we don't want things to be confusing for you. So let's say we have a repulsor executioner, and he's hanging out right here, and he's going to be like pew 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 trying to shoot people. Well, what we'll do is we're going to show strat reserves. And guys, this, if you don't know, this is the TTS Tabletop Simulator program, and it's what allows you to play Warhammer 40k online. If you guys don't know how to get this set up, I do have a series, and I'll try to link it for you so that you can learn how to install it and get playing with it. And remember, on Friday night, I am doing a teaching stream where we'll teach how to use this and how to play Warhammer, basically. So, under WTC rules, this truck comes in from Strat Reserve, and it's full of, say, Beast Snaggers. And these Beast Snaggers want to charge this repulsor. But technically, for GW rules, you can't come in from Strat Reserve and disembark and charge, because the last thing you do is you come in from Strat Reserves, which means that you can't disembark, because that would be another part of the movement phase. At the end of the movement phase, the only thing you're allowed to do is come in from Strat Reserve. WTC has a FAQ in place saying that you can come in from Strat Reserves and you can still disembark. They also means that since you're disembarking, your guys that are inside the truck are not inside Strat Reserve. Once again, I don't necessarily agree with this, but that's the way they've done it. So what we can do using WTC rules is we can actually come in from Strat Reserves with our truck 9 inches away, and then we can actually disembark so that we are 3 inches closer to the truck or to the repulsor. And we can put all of our Beast Snaggers right here, getting ready for that sweet, sweet 6-inch Strat Reserve charge. I don't like it, but it's the way it is. And I know I'm going to a big tournament in maybe 2 weeks where I'm trying to earn my golden ticket to the GW finals. And they are using the WTC rules pack. So this is absolutely strategy I will be using at said tournament, even though I don't necessarily like it. Got to be honest with you guys, I'm going to use the strengths when I can get them, because there are some amazing players at that tournament. So this would allow for a 6-inch strategic reserve charge if you're inside the truck. Okay, so that's that. Let's hit back to the PowerPoint. We've got a few more things that I need to show you on TTS, but I don't quite remember. Actually, I'm just going to stay on the TTS for a minute. Let me read this to you. Treat all walls as infinite height for the purposes of ending your movement. Therefore, you are not permitted to overhang any part of the walls with a unit that may not breach it. Remember, the only units that can breach walls are going to be your infantry and your beast. So what the heck does that mean? Well, basically what it means is that if you're not infantry or beast, you can't overhang a wall because the wall counts as infinitely tall. Towering would be kind of an exception to this as well. But let me kind of show you. So if you look at this repulsor executioner here, it's technically legal-ish, but it's not really legal. Because what this guy's trying to do is he has his repulsor, and it's standing on top of this ruin, and he knows that he's not wholly within the terrain, so he can't see through it. But his turret is not in the terrain, and he's just trying to draw a line of sight from his turret. WTC FAQ says, nope, that's nonsense. You cannot do it because this wall is technically infinitely high here. I do not particularly like this ruling, but that is the way it is. Technically, you should be wholly within the terrain, and then you can see out of it. And then this would be actually totally fine. But just being placed like this is not good enough. So if you still wanted to be able to see over this wall, it's no problem. You're just going to have to get your tank actually wholly within the terrain. So put them something like this, and then you would be able to see over the wall because you're tall enough to. So you can still do it. You just have to make sure that you position your models correctly. I have mixed feelings about this. I think the reason why this is a problem is because we've changed terrain rules in 10th edition. I kind of like it. I kind of don't. But overall, it's not that impactful because, as you can see, you can still get your tanks wholly within the terrain, and then you can still see over here because you're wholly within the terrain. But things like this don't work. So you actually have to position correctly. All right, cool. Now let's actually go back to the PowerPoint here. PowerPoint view. Beep. Okay. So when a unit that was not on the table at the start of the current phase is targeted by an ability that would return models to the unit, nothing happens. You may only return models to a unit that was on the table at the start of the phase. What the heck does that mean? This is a very simple one. Basically what happens is because in 10th edition, you can use stratagems on units that are in reserves. And you have to be able to, because otherwise rapid ingress would be impossible. So I like this. I actually think this is fine. This is no problem. Some stratagems allow you to actually resurrect models, or some abilities allow you to resurrect models. Think about the Necron's Reanimations protocol. Or you can think about Gene Stealer cults. They get to summon the cult. Or even Adeptus Custodes, we get to come back to life. Once per game per unit, you can resurrect one Custodian Guard. Well, if you're in Deep Strike, so let's say I have, or if you're not in Deep Strike, if you're just no longer inside on the table. So let's say I have my Custodian Terminators, and my Custodian Terminators lost one model. Well, I use from Golden Light to pick them up. Now that they're no longer on the table, I cannot, in my command phase, in my command phase, normally I would spend 1 CP to resurrect a Custodian. Now I can't do it because they're not on the table. I think this is a fine change. Your models have to be actually on the table to return models to the unit. No problem. It can be a little confusing because you're allowed to use stratagems on units that are not on the table, but you're not allowed to use resurrection on models that are not on the table. And then lastly, when a unit is returned when a model is returned to a unit, say using resurrection protocols, resurrecting a custodian, or something, anything like that, that unit is then eligible as a target of the Fire Overwatch stratagem as it's being upset. So basically what WTC says is, well, even if you remain stationary, if you're going to bring back units, say to give yourself free movements, that counts as movement, so I can Overwatch you if you do it. I actually like this. I think it's totally fine. No problems at all. And that's it. Those are the big changes, guys. WTC is awesome. I'm going to spend just a quick moment, I think, here, and I'm going to go back to TTS. I'm going to show you why I like the terrain so much, which I do believe is the best part of WTC. But most of the time, the rulings make the game a lot better, a lot smoother, and that's just the way the cookie crumbles. So let's take all these models over here, and I'm just going to draw a few lines for you. We'll hide these strat reserves. All right. Let's take all these guys off here. So I'm just going to click on draw, and we're going to draw a line. So this is the engage. These are the lines that actually let you see. So if you're looking at this table right here, if I'm in my deployment zone, I can see here. I can see here. Oh no. Let's try that again. And that's about it. I can see here, but you can't see through this, right? Because this counts as part of the as part of the game. This counts as part of the ruins, so you can't see through here. But this is your line, and you can see basically nothing here at all. You could see all the way over here. So there's essentially no place except for on the far edges where you can see from deployment zone to deployment zone. This is very typical for WTC style terrain, and I like it a lot. It means that if you're a gunline army, you don't just automatically table your opponent turn one. This has been historically a big problem for GW style terrain, especially back in 9th edition. GW style terrain in 10th edition is a lot better, but the introduction of towering does cause problems. I do think WTC terrain is by far the fairest and the best way to actually use terrain setups for Warhammer 40,000. And that is one of the big benefits of playing WTC. Their FAQ rule packet is actually pretty elaborate, and it does a great job of balancing the game overall. They have army-specific FAQs as well, which help to balance certain factions as well, and I definitely appreciate that about them. Overall, I love WTC. It's the best way to play 40k in my humble opinion, but it's not the only way. What about you guys? If you've looked a little bit at the WTC style rules, have you guys enjoyed it? Do you like it? Do you have any questions about it? Comment down below. If you have any questions about how to play WTC or any other GW variant for Warhammer 40,000, don't hesitate to message me. I am now offering comprehensive coaching services. I'll have a video out pretty soon on what that really entails. I hope all of you guys found value in this video, and if I earned your subscription today, that would be absolutely awesome. But until next time, everyone, have a happy crumpin', and we will see you next time. Bye-bye.